Are we on the verge of a marriage renaissance? One journalist has found that despite discouraging numbers, the conversation about marriage is suddenly changing in positive ways. Writer for the Deseret News, Mariya Manzhos, will explain. Hi, Mariya.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. You say marriage is waning in popularity these days. 2 out of 5 millennials view marriage as an outdated institution, according to a 2023 poll. Why do you think that is?
Well, we live in such an individualistic society where what's valued is your career, your success, your professional success, professional achievements, and freedom that a lot of people often think is at odds with marriage. Brad Wilcox, a professor at University of Virginia, in his recent book, Get Married, also cites that marriage has some economic disadvantages for working class people, where by getting married, you can actually lose medical and other social benefits. So it is waning in numbers are not optimistic. More people are waiting to get married until their 40s or may choose not to get married at all. And people are more likely to cohabitate, but not to actually get married.
Okay, and you say there's actually proven benefits to getting married. What are those benefits?
Yeah, well, in that same book, Professor Wilcox says that marriage is, married people are actually happier. There's research that shows that their mental health is better, and they are more likely to accrue more wealth as they get older than single people. So there actually are some economic benefits and lots of social and emotional benefits for people who are married. And Gallup data from 2020 to 2023 shows that marital status is actually a stronger predictor of well-being for American adults than education, race, age, or gender. So that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting. And you wrote an article for the Deseret News on this subject, and you often quoted Deborah Baum, a literary professor at the University of Southampton and the author of the book, Oh Marriage. I've pulled a few quotes of hers, and I'm hoping you can react to them and give us a little bit more context. Are you up for it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, the first one says, people have this idea that you marry in order to have sameness, but that isn't true. You marry difference, someone who will change.
Well, I think marriage is a journey of discovering your spouse over the course of many years, and you might find out that some things you didn't know about them. You may discover some new things about them as you begin, as you're starting a family. You may find that your opinions on parenting vary, or the way you manage finances. So the differences are bound to emerge over the course of marriage. And as you get older, you change. And so I think marriage offers a great opportunity for us to learn how to live with differences, and how to love the person who you might disagree with, and then maybe take this approach outside of your marriage and apply it in your broader community.
I think this next one's very interesting. It reads, I think that people think it's very shameful if you are happily married because the world is so miserable. And she also said, but I don't know if anybody knows that behind a lot of those married homes, those are happy people living there.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was actually from an event, a virtual event I attended with Deborah Baum on Interintellect, which is a conversation group. And that's what she said in the meeting. And I think it's interesting, just from personal experience. I think it's, somehow more acceptable to talk about marriage these days in the context of it being, constant work, maybe even highlighting the challenges, which are all very real. But I think that the happy moments of connection, support, partnership, collaboration don't often get enough spotlight. So I think that also we live in a crazy world where we have so much disagreement. There are wars happening. And so just acknowledging that marriage is a good thing and you're happy being married can sort of feel, a little shameful, and at least shameful to admit that. So there's a conversation to be had about how we talk about marriage and how what we're willing to acknowledge both the challenges but also the great things about it.
Yes. And with all this in mind, how are we on the verge of a marriage renaissance?
Yeah, so I spoke with Carl Caton, the president of the faith-based organization San Antonio Marriage Initiative, and I brought up that there are these books out that talk about marriage and that are making the case for marriage. And he sort of echoed my observation that the public conversation around marriage is turning a corner possibly and becoming more optimistic. And he in fact is working on a paper that looks into the idea of the marriage renaissance. And he also made a point that, marriage today is not what it used to be in, say, the 1960s. And he said marriage wasn't that great then. And what we need to do is to create a better future for marriage, is what he told me. So I think that's a hopeful note where we can reshape the conversation around marriage and reframe it in the modern context and acknowledge all the great benefits and wonderful things about it.
Yes, that's a beautiful insight. And yes, you can find this full article on the Deseret News. Thanks, Mariya.